So you want to get extending on this project involving conditionals. One possibility, though you are welcome to experiment with whatever, is a text adventure. So here's an example of something I would consider to be extending. Here's an example of a text adventure if you've never played one. So let's play through it. Well, at camping, you find a cave with old ruins inside of it. You touch some markings on the ruins and suddenly they all start glowing and everything starts shaking. The cave entrance collapses. We're in a cave chamber dominated by the entrance to massive ancient ruins covered in glowing alien writing. The cave entrance has collapsed. What would you like to do? You can go back the way you came. Why don't we try that? Try as you might, you cannot move any of the larger stones blocking the entrance to the cave. So why don't we just go into the temple? So I'm going to enter the temple here. I'm going to come to the chamber. A strangely musical clicking and humming seems to be coming from all around. A silver disc hovers over a glowing pedestal. What should we do? I'm just going to go forward, further into the temple. Now we proceed further into the ruins. You're in a large open chamber with what appears to be a large pool in the center. A large muscled four-armed lizard person notices you and comes toward you. What would you like to do? We could run back the way we came just to see that we can go from room to room. I'll go forward again. It's back the same. The same lizard person has noticed me and is coming towards me. Instead of running back the way I came or jumping into the pool, I will approach the lizard creature. And here's one of the endings. There are 3 endings. As the creature comes closer, he makes aggressive sounding sounds. You panic and grab a nearby object to attack him. As you swing at him using his forearms, he swiftly disarms you and chokes you until you fall unconscious. You wake up in your tent wondering if it was all a dream. So that's one ending. Why don't we try another? So we're doing it again. There's just the 3 rooms, so I'll assume you remember it. I'm going to look at the glowing writing. We examine the writing, and each character seems to be a glowing 3D shape in the air. Some nice little, atmosphere. Then I'm going to enter the temple. Now here, there's this whole hovering disc we never investigated. Maybe we should do it. So we've got this silver disc hovering over a glowing pedestal. If we take a look at it, oh no! As we reached out to tentatively touch the silver disc, it suddenly zips onto your head and painlessly changes shape and embeds itself in your skin. You feel a slight tingling. Well, that's spooky for me, so I'm going to go back the way I came. We're back in the original chamber. We got these massive ancient ruins covered in glowing alien writing. I'm going to go look at this writing again. I know it's kind of dumb because, I've already done it and it didn't give me much except that there are 3D images in the air. But what? Somehow you can read the writing. Apparently this is some sort of library meant to preserve the accumulated knowledge of an alien race known as the Bozdets in case of a disaster capable of ending their civilization. Shh, don't tell. All right, well, that was cool. I'm going to go back in the temple. And we're in this temple. We can't go look at the silver disc anymore because we grabbed it. So we're going to go forward, meet Mr. Lizard. So we're in the large open chamber with what appears to be a large pool in the center. A large muscled four-armed lizard person notices you and comes towards you. What would you like to do? I'm going to approach this lizard creature. It didn't go so well before, but let's see what happens now. As the creature comes closer, he makes aggressive sounding sounds. That sounds like before. But somehow you understand him. He is welcoming you to the library and introducing himself as Larash, one of the librarians. You talk for hours and learn to access the library resources and are invited to stay. 2 years later, you leave the library after mastering some of the knowledge the library contains and gaining wisdom in how to use it, and begin changing the world for the better. So that is a text adventure, and that is what I'm going to show you how to make. So looking at this code here, to start off with, notice we've got import java.util.scanner, which we're going to need just to enter information by the keyboard. We'll have to create a scanner object. If you're stuck with this stuff, if you move ahead, the next unit under while statements, your first section is on the scanner, using scanner objects to get input. So if you want better understanding, you can go there. We're also going to need a couple different variables. First one I'm using is one called room number. It lets me switch between rooms easily. Another thing is I set up a variable called choice. That's the variable we're going to be changing every time we pick something. When it says, do you want to go back the way you came, or look at the glowing writing, or enter the temple, what we're doing is we're changing the value of choice. And notice I also have this Boolean called have object, which starts off as false. That represents if you have gotten that funny little like ring on your head yet, which is, in my story, the universal translator, which lets you understand the writing. So to start off with, I've got my intro stuff, the camping text. And then I've got this while true loop. This while true loop will just keep me doing it again and again and again. So the end bracket to that is all the way down here. So everything is inside it. That is my main game loop. It just keeps happening again and again forever, or until it hits an end game thing, which is system.exit. System.exit immediately ends the program. If you throw in a 0, it's just a normal exit code. So anyway, each room has this kind of format. So while true, I print out this /n is just means new line. So this just prints a couple lines every time you like go from one room to another. If room number equals 0, that's the cave entrance. It gives you the cave entrance text. /t is a tab, so it just tabs it in. And it gives you all your go the way you came options. And then this is super important. We pick a choice. We said choice equals input.next.char@0. And that just makes choice equal to whatever the user picked. This gives me a couple spaces here. So I'm just printing out a new line. So like, gives me 2 spaces. Not a big deal. And then if they pick a capital G or a little g, it says, hey, you can't go back. We're in room 0. We can't go back because there's stones in the way. Else if they pick L, like read something, like read the text on the ruins, if they have the object, like if have object equals true, because have object is true or false on its own, it says somehow you can read the writing, blah, blah, blah. But otherwise, if you don't have the object, if have object is false, like it is initially, it just goes and tells you there are like 3 shapes in the air. It's also got, if you enter E, it says you carefully enter the ruins, and then it changes room number. And if they pick anything else, it just tells them they can't do it. So all of this is dealing with everything in room 1. So if room number equals, room 0. So room 0, they get all of this, all the stuff associated with that room. If they go to room 1, it gives the room 1 text. It says, hey, go back the way you came. Notice I threw a little if statement around the text here, where it says look at the hovering disk, because I don't want it to give you that option if you found the disk. So it will only print this out if you do not have the object. If have object is false, and then if you not that, it becomes true. So it'll only say, hey, do you want to look at the hovering disk if you've not already done that? And you can always proceed further into the temple. Again, we do our like choice. We set our choice variable to whatever they want to do. I also did 2 spaces. Notice this time, instead of an if, else if, I did a switch, because that is an equally reasonable way to solve it. So I'm switching based on choice, which I can do because choice is a character, and switch statements work with characters. So if they type in a G, that's your like go back thing. It'll say, the code will jump to these points. It'll say you head back, and it'll set room number to 0. And then it'll break out of the switch statement. If they choose L, it'll jump to here and print out the hey, this thing just jumped on your head and stuck in your skin. And it sets have object to true. So now you can understand alien speak. And if you go forward, proceed further into the ruins, and it sets your room number to something else. And by default, it says, hey, if you try to do anything that's not allowed, it'll just tell you can't do that. And then room number 2, pretty much exactly the same. They're all very similar. I mean, I can add little extra bits, so I can have little Boolean flags. If I wanted to have battle, I could do it. I could have a little like health and weapons. I can get it so you can only beat guys if you've got a weapon. If you pick that up in another room, otherwise you just die. You could do all kinds of stuff. You can, yeah, whatever you can imagine, you can do. We're just using if statements and switch statements and other delightful conditionals. By the way, if you hadn't noticed, we are definitely having ifs inside of ifs. These are nested if statements if you haven't run into them yet. Anyway, so we also have room number equals 2. Exactly the same idea. What I want you to notice about this is pretty modular. So every time, every pass through the loop, it'll say, hey, what's room number? If room number is 0, it jumps to this, which is all the info for room 0. And then once you're done with room 0, it'll go hit the end bracket for the while loop. And then it'll go back up here and then go through it with potentially a new room number. And so if I've chosen something that makes my room number equal to 1, then instead of this if statement triggering, it'll trigger the next else if, and then we'll get all the room 1 information. I definitely copied and pasted. Once I made one room, I copy and pasted other rooms, and you can have them connected in any way you want. You can have endings. Remember, for endings, you can do system.exit anytime you want. All right, that is how it works. Hopefully it sort of makes sense. Thanks for listening.